How's it going, everybody? It's the Joe Low Fox News, my channel where I talk about anime, video games, cartoons. And today I'm here to talk about some Daredevil, specifically Daredevil Born Again. That's right. So I know I already made a video talking about Daredevil Born Again when the first two episodes came out and just give you my thoughts and all that. So I figured, you know what? Might as well talk about what I think of season one so far since I watched it. So this will be unscripted, and I will be referring to my notes and stuff, and just kind of wing it or improvise, that kind of thing. So let's get right into it. One of my gripes with the Daredevil Born Again show is that it really feels like Daredevil and Kingpin are both stagnated as characters. Like I really feel like there's no like genuine character development, no progression, none of that stuff. And I understand that this is a continuation series of the Netflix Daredevil. That was a really solid series back in the day, and it's like, oh, it's taking place 10 years after the fact, so it's like you got to explain. So what is Daredevil and what is Kingpin Wilson Fisk been up to after all this time? And we already know what Kingpin's been up to if you've watched Hawkeye and Echo. Like basically, Hawkeye, he was doing some shady practices with Kate Bishop's mom and all that stuff, and then he got shot in the face or whatever after he got defeated by Kate Bishop somehow. And then later on, he got defeated by Echo in her own show after he had took her in and mentored her and all that. It was a whole thing. And now here we are with this whole Vanessa situation where pretty much she has taken over his operations since running things in his absence, which from like 2019 to 2023 during the whole Infinity War in Avengers Endgame, apparently Kingpin was snapped away at the time. So he was gone for that period of time, and then he came back shortly afterwards, made some problems for Hawkeye, or aka Ronan, Clint Barton and stuff for a while. And then all that other stuff happened with Echo where he was trying to recover from all that stuff. And now we get to where Vanessa's cheating on him and they're having some kind of couples counseling, and then they get back together, and then Vanessa tries to have Kingpin assassinated for whatever reason. I don't understand. So, yeah, it's a whole thing. But I'll get into Vanessa later, though. But it just doesn't really feel like Matt and like Kingpin have really progressed as characters. It really feels like they're doing the Disney generic character arc where pretty much like they're just trying to find themselves, and they call that like, oh, that's character development, that's character progression. Not really. I mean, how many times have we seen characters just trying to find themselves? I mean, Thor has been trying to find himself, find his place in the world, and that meant giving up his birthright to Asgard and stuff to like Valkyrie for whatever reason, Tessa Thompson's character, and just a whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah, like I said, it just doesn't really feel like there's not that much progression with Daredevil and Kingpin as characters and stuff. I mean, even with Matt, like, and this goes into my next point where Matt's not even Daredevil throughout majority of the entire like show and stuff. He's mostly just Matt Murdock doing lawyer stuff and being less of Daredevil because he gave up being Daredevil to honor Foggy Nelson, his best friend and stuff, because that's probably something he would have wished for. But I'm like, we've kind of been through this, that even like that before. Yeah, Daredevil, he has tried to tackle the law the right way, and obviously there are things that he can't do as a lawyer that he has to become Daredevil and stuff, you know what I mean? And I also, well, I'll get into that later too when I get to that. But yeah, it just doesn't really feel like, I'm just like like, it's just like, it's just a boring show. And don't get me wrong, I can definitely get behind some shows where it's like, oh, but this is specifically supposed to be a superhero show. So it's just like there's not enough superheroing and just a lot of expedition talking and good acting and stuff, but nothing really like, oh, that makes me want to come back and like resubscribe to like Disney Plus or something to like, oh, you know what I mean? So it's just like, yeah. And this kind of makes me think of like She-Hulk, because She-Hulk wanted to be a show where it was like going to be like a lawyer driven type show, kind of like Law and Order, but the writers were so incompetent they didn't know how to write compelling lawyer or compelling court dramas and stuff. So basically they just scrapped that idea and just turned it into a sitcom comedy kind of thing, which was unfunny, by the way. And trust me, I've seen She-Hulk. That was definitely one of the straws that broke the camel's back for me as far as being subscribed to Disney Plus during the first go around, where I was like, all right, forget this. But anyways, neither here nor there. But it seems like, yeah, this show really feels like is like trying to do what they try to do, and I'm still like, yeah, with a little bit of the superhero undertone of, oh, Hector Ayala, he's the White Tiger, and he did some stuff as White Tiger, but yeah, Yeah, and then we get to this whole court stuff and all that where Matt defends him. It's a pretty decent episode, and then in the end, it kind of feels null and void because they just killed him off for like no apparent reason, you know. And I mean, we all kind of suspected that he was probably going to die off or something, but it was way too soon, and it was very anticlimactic. Which honestly, this is more so anticlimactic the show. Then there's the supporting characters like Cherry, Christina, Heather, and BB and stuff, which I either found annoying or I just didn't really have much care for, like because they were just that underwhelming. Like Foggy and Karen, they were definitely good characters back in the Netflix series, where Foggy was like, he was not only like Matt's best friend, but he was almost like a brother to Matt, and it really did feel that way too, like with the flashbacks and stuff with them in college and everything, and them talking about, once we get out, we're both gonna open up a law firm and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Great scenes like that. You know, we're gonna be avocados or whatever. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. It's just yeah. But I don't really get any of that here with any of those characters, like with Cherry or Christina and stuff that are supposed to be like substituting for Foggy, or with like Karen and stuff. Karen and Matt, they had a genuine relationship. Personally, myself, I've already talked about Karen already, how I think that she should have been killed off really since season 3. To be honest, like that Guardian Devil storyline that they were trying to adapt with Daredevil season 3 and stuff, and it will make sense for Bullseye to kill Karen more so than Foggy. But I mean, yeah, but I get it. I know Vanessa hired Bullseye to assassinate Foggy, and then a lot of people were speculating that they fake Foggy's death. Personally, I didn't. I'm like, nah. I know they killed off Foggy over Karen to kind of like give Daredevil that emotional kind of baggage because he's such a major supporting character for Matt. So with these new characters and stuff, I don't really feel like that warmth or anything. Like Cherry, I feel like he really does hold Matt back from being Daredevil, where he's always like chastising him or belittling or berating him and stuff for trying to be Daredevil again. And I'm like, no, he needs to be Daredevil again to handle these situations because there's things, obviously, clearly things that is beyond their control as like either a lawyer or some deadbeat cop that they can't do. So he has to be Daredevil and stuff. He saved the city multiple times. So why can't he just, from the Hand, from Kingpin, from the mob, all that stuff, Bullseye, etc. Like, he's saved the city plenty of times. So it just doesn't make any sense why, he's just encouraging him not to be Daredevil again because as if he's going to make things worse or something like that, Or like Christina. Like, Christina, she's kind of like Matt's partner or something like that, but I'm not really feeling her and stuff. Like, I mean, I was like, all right, let's give her a chance at least, maybe. She's not really all there, honestly. Like, like I said, she's supposed to be the stand-in for Foggy, where she's Matt's partner. Person myself, since this storyline of this show is supposed to be based off of like modern day Daredevil. Honestly, I personally myself feel like they should have just went with Daredevil actually being like some kind of priest, like how he is currently in the comics, where he can actually like, he can be a priest and he can be in like this orphanage and stuff, and he can help these kids out, which he's currently doing right now. So I think that would have been better than doing all this lawyer stuff. And I mean, I get it. Like, obviously, he is a lawyer, and he's known for being one, and one of the best lawyers there is. But I'm just saying, like, yeah, I just feel like, all right, well, if you're going to do that, then you might as well just have him just be some kind of priest and stuff. He runs an orphanage, and you can probably find ways of, like, creatively, like, introducing newer characters and stuff, like the second White Tiger and stuff. I think that's Ava, if I'm not mistaken. I missed the girl's name, but basically, like, because I know Ava from Ultimate Spider-Man. When I used to watch that when I was a little bit younger. But like Ava and stuff, they could have introduced her in the orphanage or something like that. Maybe she could have been friends with somebody from there. Personally, they could have actually aged her up, really, because if they really wanted to, set up with her being the new White Tiger, they should have aged her up a little bit more, or casted somebody a little bit more older. Which I don't have no problem with this current actress, but I'm just saying they could have just casted somebody a little bit older that's like at least a young adult, maybe, or a teenager or something like that, where they can at least at least look like that they can like fight and stuff. So once Hector dies, then she can pick up where he left off versus no, let's wait a couple of years into like Daredevil and stuff for her to like grow up, and then she'll eventually become White Tiger. That doesn't make any sense to me, but that's neither here nor there. And then Heather, she's definitely starting to come off of annoying and stuff. I didn't have much of a problem with her. But one of the things that definitely ruined Heather as a character was that scene where she killed Muse. And then she was talking to Matt and stuff. They were having that conversation. She was like, Well, Daredevil, he made things worse. He didn't save my life. Bitch, what? He didn't save your life. Like, Muse was pretty much about to kill you, and then Daredevil showed up and saved your life, clearly. But she was like, I saved myself. Sure you did. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, sure you did. But I don't know. I'm just like, all right, whatever. But that kind of goes back to my point of how I was just like, I wasn't really feeling her becoming the new love interest or whatever. Because really, certain heroes, now there are certain heroes that work best with a stay at home girlfriend, kind of like Spider Man and stuff and Mary Jane, or like Superman and Lois Lane. You know, they always had those type of characters where. They always had those type of characters where obviously they work best with those characters and stuff, but not every superhero really needs like that kind of girlfriend, because we see how that turns out, like this whole Daredevil, Matt Murdock, Heather situation, and there's other examples too, like Invincible with Amber and all that, but Daredevil, he always worked best, or his best relationships are mostly with the girls that are like, oh, they can, they're killer whoop bitches and stuff, or they can kick some asses and stuff, like clearly like Elektra or Black Widow or Echo and stuff. But since Black Widow is kind of dead in the MCU, that's kind of a wasted opportunity. Echo, yeah, nah, I'm good off of Echo. We don't need Echo to be a love interest of Matt Murdock. After they had did that Echo spin-off show or whatever, yeah, no, we're good. I'm like, we're good. Hawkeye, no thank you. I'm like, no thank you. But yeah, I'm like, yeah, but I would have been perfectly fine with Elektra coming back and stuff. I mean, now we know they probably would have tried something where they would have definitely had tried to like have Elektra become the new Daredevil and stuff. But I'm just saying, like, but I just rather Elektra just beat herself and just show back up and help out Matt and stuff. I think that would have been a lot more impactful, especially during the the finale of the show, where instead of Elektra, Karen shows up and she brings Frank Castle and all that stuff or whatever, and helps Matt out with what Foggy was trying to do or something. I'm just like, okay. It's not really worth the hype, but okay, cool. Which is kind of the reason why Frank Miller created Elektra in the first place, because I'm going to use this as an example. So when Frank was doing an interview, I believe it was for the 2003 Daredevil movie, pretty much Frank was saying how, like, with Elektra, like, Elektra is supposed to be like this, where, imagine, I'm going to use Superman as an example. So Superman, imagine somebody like Superman, he's like, a superhero, works 9 to 5, he's like a, guy with superpowers and stuff. So why would somebody like Superman be with Lois Lane? An average woman and stuff, she don't got any powers, she's just a regular human and stuff, she's a journalist, etc. When you can have somebody like Wonder Woman, who's very sexy, very badass and stuff, she can kick ass, and she got superpowers too, and all that other stuff, and she has no tolerance, and she don't need no man, that kind of thing. I'm not saying that's Wonder Woman's characterization. I'm just using that as an example of what Frank Miller was trying to say, where that's kind of like Elektra for like Daredevil and stuff, and that relationship works a lot more better compared to like Daredevil's other normal relationships with other women, which 9 times out of 10 tends to end up very bad, And not to say that his relationship with, Elektra and Daredevil's relationship is perfect, but I'm just saying, like, it's a lot more notable or better compared to, like, his relationship with Karen, his relationship with Heather, which in the comics that ended up very tragically. Better than his relationship with Matt's ex-wife, that I can't remember her name, but she was blind too, and she like divorced him or left him or whatever. It was it was a lot. So yeah, I'm just saying, like, I mean, yeah, like Matt definitely was one of those type of characters that just works best with a character that can kick some ass and stuff like that, kind of like a Green Arrow, Black Canary kind of thing, where yeah, Green Arrow and Black Canary, they work because they're both superheroes, and they have a very good partnership, compared to like, yeah, with like a Spider-Man and a Mary Jane, or a Superman and a Lois Lane and stuff, But yeah. Alright, so going into one of my other points is I feel like a lot of villains were definitely underrepresented. So I know when we think of Daredevil villains, I know we think of Kingpin, we think of Bullseye, we think of the Hand and all that, And we were definitely looking forward to Bullseye to definitely raise some hell this season. But he's only in a couple of scenes where, he fights Daredevil in the first episode in the beginning for like, the introduction, and then he's in the court, gets locked away for life, and then Bullseye is in prison. Him and Matt have that one scene. Then he escapes prison, Then he shoots Kingpin, and that's pretty much all the scenes that about Bullseye that he's in, pretty much. And then he's not mentioned in the last episode or anything where he could have actually presented a challenge for like Daredevil or Punisher or whatever. You know what I mean? Like he's not doing anything, you know. So it's like, wow, you just kind of wasted that character, then, you know. Or like, you know, just plenty of other stuff too, you know. But I'm just saying, like, this is a comic book type show and stuff where it's based off a comic book or a superhero drama. So it would make sense to kind of just, you know, take the comic book, right, and try to adapt whatever you can into a show, which this show was supposed to be. But it's kind of like I just said before, it's like, oh, just a lawyer show with a little bit of superhero undertone, which really isn't like the Daredevil comics and stuff. Yeah, they definitely do have moments and stuff, but yeah. But what I'm trying to say is with the villains is that they can definitely, like, you know, represent some of Daredevil's very obscure villains, because Daredevil, compared to like a lot of the Marvel like characters and stuff, Daredevil really has like a very, very obscure amount of villains and stuff in his rogues gallery and stuff, you know. Like, I'm just saying, like, even for me, like, I mean, of course I know the primary ones, like Kingpin, Bullseye, the Hand, and all that stuff, and Elektra sometimes, even though I kind of consider Elektra obviously to be an anti-hero, but, you know, there have been times where she's caused Daredevil some problems, especially in the beginning. But here, you know, they have Muse and stuff. I wasn't really looking forward to Muse. I was like, I mean, he kind of looks like a C-list villain anyways. I mean, I know Daredevil fights a lot of C-list to B-list type villains, and even some Spider-Man villains too, which, I mean, obviously his greatest villain is the Kingpin after all. And then, you know, Mysterio because of the whole Guardian Devil thing. And he's actually fought Electro a couple of times too himself, so yeah. And Dr. Octopus here and there, but I'm just saying, like, you know, they can actually introduce some of his other, like, his own actual villains, like the Owl, Typhoid Mary. They could actually have Hammerhead, which I know Hammerhead is also a Spider-Man villain too, but I mean, would it really be out of place for Hammerhead to go up against Daredevil, which they've faced off before, Tombstone or something? Stiltsman, I don't know how you're going to adapt Stiltsman into live action, but I mean, that'd be pretty interesting though. Or Dr. Fear or something like that, you know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of characters that they can pull from and just adapt into, like, Daredevil Born Again, which they just didn't, you know? And this is like a 9-episode, like, long show, and the show is like each episode is like about 40 minutes to at least an hour, right? Some episodes might be an hour, some minutes. I mean, some episodes might be like at least 40, 42, 43, 45 minutes or whatever, 55. It depends. But still, I mean, that's a lot of time, a lot of content where you actually could just, you know, episodic, like kind of like Arrow, where at least in Arrow, Oliver was always fighting. Like, there was always some, like, you know, big story happening as an undertone, but he at least was fighting like the immediate threat to the city at the time, you know. So they can always do that with Daredevil, but they didn't really do that here. And I was saying, like, they could have used some of those characters like Frogman or whatever, you know, Typhoid Mary, Hammerhead, Stiltsman, Dr. Fear, Owl, so on and so forth, you know. So it's just weird that they just didn't really, like, you know, it just feels like a kind of, or not even weird, but it just feels like a missed opportunity to me. Then kind of just rehashing the same old. And before I go, let me give you a quick little elevator pitch. Now, what I think would definitely be an interesting idea that everybody would probably love, what they should have done for season 1 of Daredevil Born Again versus just, you know, save all this stuff possibly from season 2 of Born Again and probably not even execute this, but will probably definitely sell me on this, would be to, like, I would say, here's what you do. Not only make this like a Spider-Man crossover kind of thing where you bring in Spider-Man, but you know how like Kingpin was name-dropping Spider-Man, Punisher, White Tiger, Daredevil, of course. Well, I feel like, yeah, why not bring in those characters? You could have bring in Spider-Man, Iron Fist, Daredevil, Luke Cage, and all of them. You know, like the vigilante type characters, the street-level vigilante type characters, where they all team up. You could have brought in Moon Knight and stuff, even though obviously I know Spider-Man, Moon Knight, and Iron Fist aren't exactly good portrayals, and these are the MCU versions. Still, that actually would have been a lot more hype or a lot more like worth watching than just what we got here with Daredevil Born Again, where we got Kingpin's marital problems and stuff. Matt Murdock realizing for the 1 millionth time that the system doesn't work and that he has to take matters into his own hands as being Daredevil and stuff. Bland, uninteresting characters, the show, like all that stuff, you know. But yeah, that's what I think they should have gone with and stuff. You know, we could have gotten all that, but I'm just saying, you know, I mean, we definitely liked that last episode, some of the fight scenes with Punisher and stuff, where he was like killing all those cops and stuff. And yeah, some of that stuff was pretty bloody. I actually liked that part where he like stabbed some dude in the neck, and even though the blood looked fake as hell, I kind of liked it though. I liked how that blood splattered and stuff or whatever. It was kind of weird how Punisher was getting shot by a shotgun. Despite I know he was wearing a bulletproof vest, but come on, a bulletproof vest is not going to protect you from a shotgun like that at that range. Like no. But anyways, whatever. And honestly, I thought they were going to kill off Punisher, but no, they saved him at the end. So I was like, all right, good, because you would have pissed off a lot of fans if you had killed off Punisher and stuff. Like, man, there would have been so much heat for that. I'm not even kidding. But I'm just saying, like, you could have done that, like, because I think even in the Ultimate comics, like, all those, like, heroes had kind of teamed up at one point because I think they were kind of going up against Kingpin at one point. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, those are some ideas and stuff that every fan can kind of just get behind versus, like I said, expedition, good acting moment here, and oh, I'm finally going to don the costume. Like it's not worth the wait, you know. And like I said, this season, like or this Daredevil Born Again show is just not worth watching, you know. But that's where I stand on that. Also, I don't really see what Daredevil Born Again gets out of like trying to elevate Vanessa as a character. At least with like Miss Marvel, I understand. Even though I don't like Miss Marvel that much like that as a character, and a lot of people don't really like Miss Marvel to be honest. I get that they're trying to push her character a little bit by like, oh look, you know, because she's in the comics, so they want you to read the comics, they want you to watch the show. Vanessa, however, is not like, oh well, if we actually liked Vanessa in the show, they're gonna bring her back. Well, they could, but we don't want Vanessa back in the comics. You know, they actually did try to bring her back through like via cloning with the Jackal and stuff, but Kingpin even then he killed that version of the clone. Or like Agatha, where Agatha's always been more so of like a supporting character to like the Fantastic Four and the Scarlet Witch, but all of a sudden in the comics currently they're trying to make Agatha more so like her MCU counterpart by making her younger, and she's like this I think villainous type witch or whatever. It doesn't make any sense. But regardless though, Vanessa though, it just doesn't make sense to make Vanessa into this boss ass bitch where she's cheating on her husband, taking over his operations, she's using him, manipulating him, or whatever, and then she tried to have him assassinated. For what? And I'm like, because back in the Netflix Daredevil, Vanessa really cared genuinely about like Kingpin and stuff. She knew that he was obviously into some shading stuff. She knew that he was into crime and all that, but she didn't care. She like they both loved each other. That was the thing, you know. And I wasn't like I didn't have a strong opinion about Vanessa like that per se, but I just thought, you know, I mean, she's all right, and I like her relationship with Kingpin. A lot of people, I see some people online say that, yeah, they actually liked her character a lot in the Netflix version. Now we're kind of like from that to, yeah, now we kind of want the character dead or out the way because she's really holding Kingpin back. Like, it's just like, yeah, no, you lost the charm right there. And it's the whole, it really goes back to the whole girl boss stereotype over here in the West, at least, where they try to make like the female characters very like masculine, which there's nothing wrong with having a few masculine female characters here and there. But I mean, like, butch, boyish, they have to act like a man in order to feel empowered, you know, that kind of thing. And it's just so dumb because, like, oh, because it's a male dominated world, so now you got to, you know, females have to act and be just like the guys. They have to shave their heads and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's just not, or be smarter, be stronger, whatever. And it's just a very dumb thing to just do writing wise. And when it comes to anime definitely knows how to like really make the female characters like come off as like, you know, like as cool or badasses and stuff, make them like emotional support type characters, you know, that kind of thing. You know, currently I'm watching Spy X Family with Yor, and I'm like, yeah, Yor's a fantastic character. You know, I'm really into, like, I'm invested into the character, like all of the characters in general, but, you know, I'm just using her as an example. Like, yeah, and she's like, oh, she's strong and stuff, but it's not like forced or it's pushed in your face or anything. So with Vanessa, yeah, no, I don't really get it. It doesn't make any sense, but yeah, so that's another thing that this show, Daredevil Born Again, has definitely kind of sabotaged, which was Vanessa's character, along with definitely the Kingpin of all people, which that's kind of the last thing that we wanted, because Kingpin, they were trying to build him up to be like the street level Thanos inside the MCU, but then, well, I guess they might have succeeded, because even then with What If and other shows, they've been kind of also trying to destroy or sabotage Thanos, which I'm not really a huge fan of, because, oh, yeah, especially in What If, like, they straight up just hated Thanos. They're always having him killed, trying to, like, push this next threat, and be like, yeah, this guy is so much more bigger than Thanos, and it's just like, You're not winning me over. You're not winning me over. You have to kind of just show, don't tell. But that's just how I feel. So, like I said before, the ending felt anticlimactic. Like there was no like Daredevil, Matt Murdock. He didn't really accomplish anything um, at all noteworthy and stuff. You know, it just kind of like honestly, this episode really felt like the last episode, the ninth episode, kind of just felt like kind of like a mid-season kind of finale and not like an actual season finale. You know, like Kingpin, yeah, him and Vanessa are back together officially, sort of. You know, where I guess they conquered their problems, even though Vanessa tried to have him killed. But okay, and Matt saved his life doing so, which kind of reminds me of Spider-Man the animated series, where Peter Parker actually saved Kingpin Wilson Fisk from getting assassinated by the Hobgoblin. So I thought, yeah, maybe Kingpin actually him and Matt might actually hit it off to a degree, and he might try to repay him in some kind of way, at least, you know, kind of like how he did with Peter Parker and stuff. Even though he didn't know Peter Parker was Spider-Man, but still, like he gave him a job and all that stuff, and then he threw him under the bus by framing him for treason and stealing secrets and stuff from the country. So, yeah, which that's how we got that Daredevil Spider-Man crossover episode. So that was always nice. But anyways, yeah, but that was a like a potentially good idea that they could have done to kind of like, oh, maybe you know, Kingpin does this to kind of improve his reputation a little bit. You know, they're smiling behind closed doors or whatever, you know, or whatever. But yeah, just an idea. But no, this finale really did feel like a mid-season kind of thing. At first, I really thought Daredevil was gonna like, you know, personally out himself as like the final, like out himself as like Matt Murdock and stuff, and be like, we gotta take this, we gotta, the people gotta fight the system and all that. And I'm just like, God, yeah. But I thought he was really gonna like in that last scene. I thought he was really gonna take off his mask, and I was like, Matt, please do not do this. And he didn't do it. Okay, so I was like, all right, so I'm not tripping. But the whole army thing, yeah, that's kind of dumb too, because I'm like, because Matt clearly knows a lot more powerful like people and stuff that could actually help him take back the city from Kingpin, and that actually do know his secret identity and stuff that he can trust, like Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, so on and so forth. Like he knows people and stuff, you know. So yeah, Punisher, of course, but Punisher, you know, he got captured in this episode, and honestly, Punisher really did carry the final episode, honestly, with his scenes, because he just showed up and just started murking cops and stuff left and right. Well, obviously the dirty ones, saved Matt Murdock. So yeah, he really carried this episode and stuff. But even like Punisher, it also feels like he's at a weird kind of like stagnant place where he doesn't know what he's doing one minute, and then the next he's gonna be like, you know what? Let me I'm about to be in action and all that other you know what I mean. So I don't know, it's just this show just it's weird. So personally myself, I'm not really going to come back to season 2. Do I really recommend this? Not really, but yeah, obviously, I mean, if you really care that much about Daredevil, I mean, again, you might as well, and you want good Daredevil content, then you might as well just watch the Netflix Daredevil, or person myself, the 2003 Daredevil movie. I mean, say what you will about the 2003 Daredevil movie and Elektra, but at least they were trying to be comic book movies, and they were actually entertaining a lot more so than compared to Daredevil Born Again, where you at least had to commit 9 hours to watching, which that's pretty much a show about Matt Murdock hardly even being Daredevil until like the 6th episode, which is more than halfway through the show. Kingpin getting emasculated by his own wife and getting character assassinated for like the 3rd time in the MCU. So it's just like, yeah, like is it really like worth watching? Not really. So honestly, yeah, it's either those or just read the comics or watch whatever crossover episode they might have appeared in, some show like Spider-Man the Animated Series or Fantastic Four or something, just whatever. But like, I'm not even mad about it. I'm just like, it's a little underwhelming. I kind of expected a little bit more, not too much because it's Disney, but something, you know. But yeah, I gotta give the show 6 out of 10. It's mostly carried by the acting, not the writing. For the most part, Charlie Cox, he did a good job playing as Daredevil. Vincent D'Onofrio, he did a good job playing as Kingpin, and John Berthal played his part as Punisher and definitely carried that last episode, definitely. And yeah, you can also say that, well, it's definitely one of the better MCU shows. Well, it is, but I mean, that's not really saying much compared to like what? Echo, Agatha, what else? What other show they have? She-Hulk, I mean, Secret Invasion, like all that stuff. I mean, honestly, I'd probably put Falcon and Winter Soldier and I would probably also put even Hawkeye a little bit above Daredevil Born Again, if I'm going to be honest. And then we got Ironheart coming out next. Like, come on. So that's all I got to say there. But tell me down below what you guys think of Daredevil Born Again. Did you like it? Did you hate it? But this is the John Lowe Fox and I'm out. Peace, and until we meet again.